Hot off the press.
I'd like to call the April 25th Board of Education meeting to order. Has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda?
Yes.
Questions, comments? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? As we do at the beginning and the end of every meeting, we set aside time for people from the public to come up and make comment if they have any. Is there anybody that would like to come up and address the board? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to remind everybody that there's an opportunity to reach out to us at any given time via our email alias. We do actually monitor that and appreciate the comments that we get. Consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at that?
Yes.
Questions, comments? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. On to reports and recognition. I do not have a board chair report this evening other than to say thank you again to everybody for your hard work at our last meeting.
I have a few items. First, in the area of lockdown drills, this week we had 2 lockdown drills, one at Miller Driscoll and one at Cider Mill. The Miller Driscoll was held on Wednesday. Officer Ross, our school resource officer, was in attendance, and I think Cheryl and staff had done a very nice job of notifying parents in advance that there would be a drill. And on Tuesday, teachers spent some time explaining in a developmentally appropriate way, I think, to the young children what was going to happen. Students did not know the day and time it was going to occur, but they knew something was going to be happening. And Cheryl reported that the drill began at 9:45 and was completed by 10:05. So by all accounts, everything went smoothly, and our students and staff really did a great job with it. So again, we felt it was important to have those practice sessions. There was a lockdown drill at Cider Mill. Its second successful one of this school year this morning at 10. Officer Ross, again, was there to supervise, along with administration, Ms. Rico, Ms. Ellen Tuckner, and Matt Hepford, who's been helping out in Catherine's absence. All 1,000 children were, as Jenny said, quiet as mice, and the children and staff were applauded for their cooperation. So it's nice to see that our youngsters can rise to the occasion, understand that this is something that's important, and take it seriously. A third note, on Tuesday, we held here at the high school a mental health fair and a screening of actor Joe Pantoliano, excuse me, I always mispronounce his name, documentary No Me Kidding 2. The event was a collaboration between a variety of community agencies, including the public schools, the Youth Council, Wilton Sped, Net, and some other groups, social services. And the purpose of the event was to help raise awareness and destigmatize mental illness. And I think, as we've all seen in light of the events on December 14th, and subsequently raising the awareness and identifying supports for families and youngsters with mental illness is really a critical matter. On a very different note, many of you know that Wilton High School was recognized and rated 6th best high school in the state for 2013 by U.S. News and World Report. Nationwide, they do a ranking, and as you know, there are a variety of ways of ranking schools. It ranks nationally at 292 out of over 21,000 high schools, which earned it a gold medal. It's in the top 2% of high schools in the United States. As part of the annual Best High Schools ranking, the magazine, as I said, reviewed about 21,000 high schools, and of those, 2%, including Wilton, received gold medals, 7% awarded silver medals, 13% bronze medals, and 78% didn't get anything. In Connecticut, all 196 public high schools were reviewed. In looking at the rankings, U.S. News rated each school based on how well it prepares students for college, average math and reading, standardized test scores, and student-teacher ratios. So again, there are different criteria that different ranking systems use. The top 10 in the state, 6 of them are Fairfield County districts, Darien, Conard in West Hartford, Weston, Ridgefield, Farmington, Wilton, Staples, William Hall, Joe Barlow, and the Connecticut International Baccalaureate Academy in East Hartford. So we're really pleased by this recognition for the high school, and we really attribute it to the success and quality of our programs and the quality of our staff and our really highly motivated students, some of whom you will hear from in just a moment. This is also, I think, a tribute to a community that has provided continually strong support for schools. As we consider this ranking, I think we need to be mindful of that the criteria for recognition are based on results from a limited range of measures. While this is important, there are many measures that determine the quality of a high school. And while we take pride in this, we continue to look at finding ways to improve and provide meaningful opportunities for preparing students for happy and productive lives in the 21st century. So again, another nice piece of recognition for our high school. Throughout this year and each year, as you know, Tim and I meet, and the principals, directors, depending on the discipline, meet with groups of teachers and instructional leaders in informal talks. We call them Let's Talk sessions. These are specific meetings where we discuss curriculum and instruction. On Tuesday, we had the pleasure of spending several hours with a group of tech ILs and many of our library media specialists, and the conversation focused, I wanted to just highlight very quickly some of the topics that we talked about that I think will be of interest to the board. One was the important integration of technology and library media. As you know, during the past decade, we've seen an enormous transformation in library media centers, not just in schools, but in public libraries around the country, as technology has made a bigger and bigger inroad into the nature and the work of library media centers. We're really pleased with the work that has been done in our library media centers in utilizing technology, and also with the interest of our library media specialists in wanting to work further with the tech instructional leaders. And so we're really pleased that this kind of partnership is ongoing. A second theme that we touched on was the continued work on supporting student research. As you know, throughout this year, staff has been working with training sessions with Alan November and other technology experts in learning about how we can better prepare students and enhance their research skills. In the words, I thought this was really worth sharing, in the words of a man named Mike Fisher, one of our library media specialists shared this quote with me: "We want our students to become curators of information and not aggregators of information." So in other words, it's really doing something thoughtful and organizing the information as opposed to just amassing a lot of information. Another theme was the collections in our library media centers and the shift from digital to our print to digital. So as we buy materials, we're starting to see a shift in more materials being purchased, books in digital format, ebook formats, as opposed to print. I think we'll always have some print in our collections, but it's a gradual shifting that's occurring. And some of the purchases are being made in an effort to support the Common Core standards work and changes in curriculum. We also talked for a time about what's called BYOD, or Bring Your Own Device. And as you know, we've had we're seeing an increase in the number of students who bring technology, some of their own tablets. At the high school, more students with iPhone or smartphone technology. And we're developing policies to govern the use of this. And we're seeing some interesting things happening with regards to the use of these as instructional tool aids in instruction. We spent a certain amount of time also talking about iPads. And the iPad carts, we have 5 at the high school that have been purchased thanks to the Schools Foundation and the PTAs and some from the budget. And these carts have effectively expanded our computer lab facilities and are getting a great deal of use. And we talked about the importance of professional development for teachers on the various applications and ways that iPad can help assist teaching and learning. And then we talked about finally the something called, I was not aware of this, the Scratch Club, which is a club that provides some expanded opportunities for students to engage in programming, computer programming. And that's is suggesting that we will be changing our curriculum in computer instruction technology in the future. I suspect that we'll begin to see different forms of courses in future years. So those were just some of the highlights of what we felt was a very productive conversation. And Matt was very helpful in helping facilitate this meeting. So I wanted to share it with you.
Wonderful, thank you. It's nice to see Wilton once again being recognized not only in the state but also nationally for the caliber of our school district, and it's really a testament to the amount of support we get from our community and the hard work and diligence of all of our staff. So thank you. Move on to committee reports at this point. Chris, anything to report?
No.
Gil?
The
Sure.
organization, she must have something. The organizational meeting of the Miller Driscoll Building Department will be Wednesday, May 5th.
Congratulations. Lori?
I just wanted to make you aware that in your folders you have the latest CES newsletter, and Molly did some copying for me. Thank you, Molly, of the Common Core State Standards presentation that I saw at the workshop that I promised you at the last meeting.
Wonderful, thank you. At this point, we move on to a discussion of the top inclusion model with Mrs. Paul.
Friends.
And friends.
We've been looking, as they're coming up, we're really excited to have some of our wonderful high school students here tonight to talk a little bit about the Top Inclusion Model program.
I remember the presentation we had last year, how exciting the program is.
I think you'll be equally
I don't remember
as
having
pleased
any.
this time.
I don't remember having any wounded presenters though.
I don't think so.
Do you take a seat?
Yes, we do. All right.
Great.
We're not going to make you stand. We're actually going to let you sit.
These girls went to school all day, then they had practice, and they came here. So,
And
other than
they
that,
do
they're not
lots-
doing anything.
And they do lots of wonderful
I know
things,
they do.
which we're going to show you.
And I already made the mistake of mistaking Julia for JJ. So don't they look? Anyways.
This is Julia. So I'm very, excuse the scratchy voice, I'm very pleased to introduce the board to 3 of our very fine high school students who serve as officers of the Top Inclusion Model Club. Julia Monroe, this is Julia, Lydia Freilich, and Nikki Rudischhauser. The TIMS Club is a student organization that supports inclusion activities for special needs students in the Wilton School community. As part of the Parent Advisory Board's designation of April as Disability Awareness Month, the club officers would like to share some of their ongoing activities and the impact of these efforts on all students. And I am sure the board and the community watching us will agree that these club members and all of the club members are really very powerful and truly authentic role models for us all. They have made a big difference in the lives of many students, and I think the staff has felt your impact as well. You've helped us all learn and grow. So I'm going to, who's taking the lead here?
We'll start off.
Okay.
So we started in 2009, as you guys might know, And it all began with my brother Ian, who has special needs. And we noticed that when he was in Cider Mill, he grew up with this great group of kids that always looked out for him and, you know, never saw Ian as a bother. They always looked at him as a friend and always looked to improve his life. And so our club started with that mantra and looked to improve the lives of everyone, especially students with disabilities, because we saw that, you know, their lives could use a little improvement with their peers. And so what we do is, you can see that our motto is break barriers and build friendships. And our goal this year was to get people out of their comfort zones and make them realize that having a disability is not a disability. It's actually, you can transform it into an ability. And so throughout the year we did fun nights, and, you know, we usually do field days and the 8th grade dinner dance and all these different activities to show kids that, you know, you can transform your disability into an ability. And that's where we get into Disability Awareness Week.
Disability Awareness Week was, I think, the first week.
This was our first ever Disability Awareness
Week. First week of April. And each day was a different day. So on Tuesday, everyone wore blue for National Autism Awareness Day. One day, the officers of the club went down to Middlebrook, and we talked to all the students there. And they responded really well. I think we made a good impact on them.
Absolutely.
And then,
just to add on that part, at the high school, the last Friday of every month, we usually have Mix It Up lunch. And that's when you sit with different kids at your lunch tables and just kind of get to know everybody better, so that you will probably have more respect for them now that you know what a little bit of their life is like. And so we tried that at Middlebrook, and it was really the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Kids, like, holding chairs, like, moving from table to table.
Bouncing everywhere, just having a good time.
And so we brought that down there, and I think that's become a new tradition at Wilton High School, is Mix It Up Day. Kind of, when you're in your high school, you get stuck in your own friend groups, and the seniors sit with the seniors, juniors with the juniors, etc. And so I think a lot of the seniors will go sit with the freshmen, and so on and so forth. And then that Friday, we had a banner where you'd sign a pledge to stop using the word retarded. So we have the campaign to spread the word to end the word. And I think that's taken over our school. I rarely hear the word anymore. And if someone does say it, someone will always speak up and say, please don't use that word. It's offensive. You don't know who's listening. You don't know who it impacts. And I think our school has become much more aware of that because of Best Buddies and Top Inclusion Model. And along with that, I think the students with disabilities in our school have become a lot more comfortable with everyone. Joe Silvio, for example, Mrs. Silvio is here. He is always in the senior hallway, hanging out with us. He always asks us what lunch we have. He watches in the homecoming court. And he is just a great guy. He's so funny. And, I mean, he, like, brightens my morning every day seeing him. He's always so happy. And I think he's really bonded with the senior class because we've just accepted him, and he's become one of our friends. So,
for me, one of the most amazing things is the progress that we've made. I'm sorry for my scratchy voice. I lost it in our lacrosse game. But one of the most amazing things is the transformation we've seen in the high school. Originally, when we started in 2009, Top Inclusion Models wasn't too big, but once we started the Spread the Word to End the Word campaign, hardly anybody uses the R word. And like Nikki said, when it's said, someone will automatically correct themselves, or someone will tell the person who said it, like, that's not okay, please don't say that. And we've made a huge impact with that. But not only have we made an impact in the high school, it's amazing to see what we've done in the middle school and in the elementary schools. I was doing a presentation in a 5th grade class. My teacher, it was my previous teacher, Mr. Greasley, was in his classroom. And I was giving a presentation, and we were trying to keep the presentations a little bit lighter for the younger kids. Like in the middle school, we talked about a little more of the heavier stuff about accepting people with disabilities, but in the younger schools, we kept it a little bit lighter. So I was talking about just accepting everybody who's different and how we all have our own differences, no matter how extreme they are. And what was amazing to me was when one little boy raised his hand and he said, I have a cousin who lives, I think he said in the Philippines, a cousin with autism. And he said, everybody bullies him. And he said, his cousin is miserable. And in his school system, there's nothing. And, of course, the he worded it a little differently. He's a 5th grader, but it was a really strong statement that he made about how his cousin is really miserable in his school system, and the kids around him, like, all their eyes kind of opened up, and they're young, but they know what disabilities are, and I think through our presentations, we were showing them that it's okay to have a disability. And this boy saying this and sharing this, it was very personal, sharing that about his cousin kind of made his classmates more aware, and it was just very, I don't know, it was a great environment to be in at that moment.
To add on that, I think over the years, over the past 4 years that it's been around, I've been part of it since my freshman year when it first started. How much awareness we've raised in the past 4 years is incredible, and that really shows in our PSA for the R word that we did during Disability Awareness Week, and it took us a lot of effort, but it was really cool to see how much everybody cares about inclusion and the respect that we all have for one another, and how Top Inclusion Models has impacted not only our lives and the stressful job that it has been this year, but how rewarding all of our work has been, and it really makes us proud. So.
Well, as well, you should be. Do you want to show the
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really wonderful video. I think you enjoy seeing it. You would like to get out of the way.
Don't say the R word.
Demeaning, unnecessary, offensive, dehumanizing, degrading, wrong,
Unfair.
ignorant, insulting, unkind.
I don't use the R word because I think it's not a very nice thing to say. And if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Saying the R word is bad. It's a very derogatory term, and it's mean and hurtful. Don't do it.
People should not use the R word because they really don't know the real connotation of what retard means. They don't understand how it can hurt people with and without an intellectual and developmental disability.
Using it in reference to people is not appropriate. It should not be used. It's derogatory, and it has no place in my classroom.
Even if no harm is intended for people with disabilities, the R word can still hurt. Think before you speak because you never know who's listening.
Spread the word to end the word is an important campaign, and it does involve language and wording, but it's symbolic of our attempts to make a more open and inclusive community here at school. So it's important thing to recognize, and an important thing to act on.
I don't use the R word because it is a hurtful word and it can be offensive in many ways, and it hurts people's feelings, so I don't say the R word.
I don't use the R word because I like people first language, which teaches us and changes our culture.
Just to tell everyone, this is our advisor of Top Inclusion Models.
Like bigotry. It's like any other slur, even though it was once in general usage. Sensitive and intelligent people now, especially people sensitive to the needs of our population with handicaps and special needs, our club, and I advocate for all human rights and also rights for humans, like that includes our population of students with special needs who we love and revere.
I don't use the R word because I'm not superior to anyone with a disability.
I think we should be working to build a community where our thoughts are such that we don't rob anybody of their dignity based upon any characteristic that they have.
I don't think that we should use the R word because it disrespects a lot of people that we're all friends with. If we want to strengthen our community, we shouldn't use a derogatory term like that.
I feel like not only does it keep kids in a compartmentalized box, but it's very demeaning, and our culture here at Wilson High School is to encourage people to accept each other and to encourage each other, not to limit each other. So I think we need to be very careful about the words we use.
One of the things that people have to realize is it's not about political correctness, it's more about being respectful and kind through your language, because when you use the R word, you're stigmatizing, and basically it's like the same thing as a racial slur, the N-word against black people or any other slur against a minority group. You're bringing an entire group down by using a word like the R word.
I think with a word like the R word, maybe it's a little old-fashioned, but I like to go back to the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And with the R word, I wouldn't want somebody using a word that would make me feel demeaned or uncomfortable or hurt. And certainly for students with intellectual disabilities, that word would be hurtful to them.
When I hear someone say the R word, I think they're really ignorant. They're not using the word and obviously don't know what it is.
To the R word or the word it should not be said to people or in regards to people because it shows a sign of insensitivity. It also shows a lack of respect towards a person when they can have their own level of intelligence in a different area. Howard Gardner has studied and shown that every person does have their own intelligence or strength that they can be a part of or show going forward. So it should never be said, and we should show respect to all people.
It hurts my feelings personally when anybody uses the R word.
I have a cousin who has Down syndrome, and I would hate for anyone to call him the R word because he's anything but. He is a complete person, despite his limitations. He's a wonderful young man, and he deserves the same respect and dignity that we give everyone else in our society.
Think about it. In Wilson High School, a lot of our students, faculty, and staff have developmental, physical learning, or intellectual disabilities. And if we avoid saying the R word from day to day, we can build a bigger and better community that fosters respect. And that is going to be more respectful for our current communities and our future communities. So please try to avoid saying the R word so we can make our community better for everyone.
I'm asking all of Wilson High School students and staff to stop the demeaning use of the R word. When you use the R word to make fun of your friends and classmates, you're creating a hurtful stereotype for your classmates with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Spread the word to end the word.
Spread the word to end the word. Spread the word
To end the word. Spread the word
To end the word.
Spread the word to end the word. Spread the word to end the word. It's time that Wilson High School spreads the word to end the word. Follow us and sign the pledge to stop using the R word today at lunch. Spread the word to end the word.
I don't know if the board has any questions for these extraordinary people.
Yeah, congratulations.
That's wonderful.
Did
Absolutely
you
wonderful.
show the video to the entire student body?
We did during advisory on Spread the Word to End the Word Day, and it was everyone was really moved, so we were happy that we made it.
We had some very effective T-shirts a few years ago with the R and the...
Yeah, we still
We
have
still
it.
have and we also have
ours everywhere.
What was the biggest challenge you faced this year?
I know one of my challenges is when some of our friends argue back about the R word, and it hurts the most when it's one of your friends because we've been working so hard to end the usage of this word. And some people argue that it's a medical term or that they don't mean it in a bad way. And our response to that, really, all we can say is that it's not really a medical term anymore because there is a law called Rosa's Law that President Obama passed to eliminate the usage of the R word in all government documents. So it's not a medical term anymore officially. And when people argue that they don't mean to put people with disabilities down when they use the R word, when they're just using it to their friend, if their friend's being silly or whatnot, we tell them, what I've told my friends is, well, what word would you use in replace instead of the R word, like when you're describing your friend? And I've gotten words like dumb or stupid, and then I ask them, well, are you really considering people with special needs dumb and stupid? Because they are just as intelligent and as deserving of respect as anybody else is. So that's the way we really handle it when people argue back with us.
What can we do to help you?
Spread the word to anyone.
Who's taking over next?
Greer Kaufman,
Kyle Dietrich,
and Harry Copley. They're really a great group of kids.
3 juniors.
Very confident in them.
Well, they'll be seniors next year.
Yeah,
they've done a great job, and we're pretty confident that they'll do great things next year, too.
And of course, an offshoot of this group, the top soccer, is in full swing.
Yeah.
Starting this weekend.
Saturdays, they are out. The Diedrichs are off and running
Off and about.
with a very active group of students and parents. So we're very excited about another season of top soccer as well.
Do you guys have set meeting times, or is this just something that you always are?
We usually post them online, and we have.
So you do have meetings?
Yes.
Yeah, every other Tuesday.
Usually every other Tuesday. We're not having as many in April because we have like 2 or 3 in a row in March preparing for Disability Awareness Week. But usually it's it's every other Tuesday.
So well attended?
Yeah.
Well, you have about 70.
Wow.
There's just like
The Facebook group has a lot more.
There's like 200 kids on Facebook, but we have some regulars and people who just show up throughout the year, which is fine, you know.
Yeah.
We're glad to have people interested. It would be nice to have more regular people coming to the meetings, but we're happy to have anyone.
The other piece of this that it's probably part of what you do, but they've received extensive training. They've had speakers, they've had various presentations on social skills, how to assist students with special needs. So they've received ongoing training.
We actually just, during Disability Awareness Week, we had, his name is Brendan. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Starts with an L. But
Lemieux.
I
think it's Lemieux.
Lemieux, yeah.
Oh, right, Lemieux. And he was a really great speaker. He has special needs himself, and he was talking about how he had a really tough time in high school and how the club Best Buddies, who was helping us with Disability Awareness Week as well as prevention, he was talking about how Best Buddies saved his life and how people engaged in helping people with special needs really made a huge difference in his life. And it goes to show how a little bit of service in Best Buddies or top inclusion models or top soccer can go such a long way in improving someone's life. So I think that's our goal, you know. You never know how much or someone might need your help. And so it's just good to give it a shot instead of sitting back and watch someone else do it. And do it yourself, and it's a better impact.
And when we fundraise, we're fundraising to bring in speakers like Brandon. That was Best Buddies organized Brandon coming because he is a part of Best Buddies. He's called a Buddy Ambassador. But when we fundraise, we're fundraising to bring in speakers and mainly. And last year we brought in Kathy Snow, who was an awesome speaker. She came all the way from Colorado. She presented to the freshmen and sophomores, right, to half of the school.
Yes.
And then she also did a presentation at night, I believe, or after school.
She presented to the high school.
Right.
Yes. She was really a gift.
Yeah, that was awesome. So that's what we're aiming to do more of.
That's great. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I know a great doctor who might help you.
yeah, she sure will.
Mrs. Monroe has.
Tuesday speaker. Tell them about Tuesday speaker.
Tuesday speaker. I think his name is Tim, right?
Yeah. Tom Zwicker.
Tom. Okay. He will be in the Little Theater. He's from a club called Easter Seals, and I think it's branched off of Friendlies from the restaurant.
Yeah.
And it's just, he's going to talk about inclusion and how to reference someone who has a disability and how to treat people with disabilities like any other person that you know, and just to transform your disabilities into abilities. That's
Tuesday.
Tune in.
Is that 6?
6:30 at the Little Theater.
All right.
So Tuesday, 6:30, Little Theater.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank
Nikki, did you get any texts from Dallas today?
No, I haven't. I heard it's a big day, though.
Thank you.
What? Did the kids get to go? To the presidential honor? I don't know. Chandler's, over there.
Well, next on our agenda is a presentation I have to say I enjoy every year, purely because of the energy involved in the presentation. It's a continuing education report.
Well, tonight we begin a series of year-end reports to present to the Board of Education, and Mr. Likely, you're correct. We set the bar high in terms of quality presentations as we hear tonight about the Wilton Continuing Education Program. As you know, continuing ed provides a wide variety of programs to students and families in the Wilton Public School District, as well as to the community and surrounding towns. And tonight it's my pleasure to introduce the coordinator of the program, Dolores Tufariello, along with Emily Dowden, who is our supervisor of children's programs. I know the board will be excited to hear about the recent progress of our continuing ed program.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a truly uplifting evening. I mean, after the first presentation, it's wonderful. Again, Emily is here with me, and we'll discuss and summarize our year. First, I want to reiterate our overall goals that are constant, whatever year we're in, and that is to provide current offerings, program offerings, to keep all of our students safe in this environment and to cover our costs. Now, specific to this year, we put in expanded and upgraded technology in most of our programs, and we focused on our Wilton senior population as part of community outreach. Our overall goal is to remain self-sustaining. Now, when we take a look at our programming, in particularly our extended day childcare programming, we're really talking about our tuition-based programs. And that really, these programs are Kinder Kids, our Miller Driscoll before and after school programs, and our Cider Mill program. As we discussed the last 3 years, our concentration has been on our Cider Mill after school program. Our accomplishments this year have been installing laptops for homework and educational purposes. We made good use of the Wi-Fi there. We hired an additional instructor for activity programming. We built upon our responsive classroom approaches. We had National Honor Society students come in, volunteers, to instruct, to tutor, homework help. And we focused on our community, within the community, the Wilton Food Pantry, and outside of our community, we did a fundraiser for school supplies for Urban Impact in Bridgeport. We talk about young students. We're talking also about our before and after school programs that Emily administers. And we have a multiple number of programs. And Emily will talk about our popular and successful programs that we implemented this year.
New and successful enrichment programs included the College Admissions Boot Camp for sophomores and juniors, Cooking with Fork, Knife, Spoon for our Cider Mill students, and Intro to Theater through Storytelling for our Miller Driscoll students. New and successful sports programs this year included Speed and Agility and Flag Football for Middlebrook students, both classes taught by PE teacher Mike Roberto. As you can see him here jumping through flags. He does this in his spare time, and when he sent his photo to me, I was like, should we put it on the website? No.
Don't do this at home.
He's a great influence on the kids, and these classes have been so well received with really large numbers, so it was great this year. Another popular sports program was Basketball Clinic with Coach Mike at Cider Mill, and this spring we're offering geocaching at Cider Mill as well.
When we talk about our adult programs, our hands down #1 adult program this year, raised bed organic gardening. Hands down #1.
I would have guessed that.
You never can predict. Followed by Bikram hot yoga and regular yoga. And for that demographic that moved from the age of Aquarius to the age of retirement, we put in Social Security planning and a legacy project. Now, that legacy class instructed students on how to digitally record their lives. Also very popular is our cell phone photography class. Tech offerings, these are what we call our workforce development classes, and they run all the time, and they're very popular and very needed. This year, we did something very different. We taught, our continuing ed office staff taught iPad classes at Comstock Community Center. It was very rewarding, the experience, and very much appreciated by the seniors. And we had a great time doing it.
We did. They received gifts from their parents, from their children. A lot of iPads were given to seniors this year from their parents. So
it was hands-on. We instructed in front of the classroom, and we walked around. I really only believe in hands-on computer instruction in our adult labs because we want people to come in and then come away with something, as opposed to a demo lecture, which is very hard and very frustrating, I believe, for many people, to go back then to begin to create something. So hands-on are the way to go. Increased visibility. When we talk about communication, we talk about communicating in real time with our extended day extra newsletters. We have signs that we put out in a real space. When we start registration periods, we communicate online with website enhancements and announcements on our website, through Edline for registration periods, and we did build a Facebook page, and we put announcements on that page, but we have a plan for it for next year, and we'll talk about that at the end. Technology upgrades and enhancements. I spoke to you about the Cider Mill laptops for homework. We're actually going to tablets next year. We put in place a new online billing system this year. Website enhancements are constant and continuous. We collaborate with Matt Hepford's group, the IT department here, as well as in the other school. This all yields to instructor autonomy. And for that means our instructors get information real time, all the time, and this helps with reacting in a regular mode as opposed to an emergency mode. This equation leads to, this year, increased registrations, which drive the whole department. Future focus. Okay.
For students,
young students,
we'd like to bring in a math enrichment program at Miller Driscoll, a karate program at Miller Driscoll, as well as Cider Mill, a music and movement program at Miller Driscoll, and it includes preschool as well, and a volleyball program at Middle.
Adult programs. We are going to continue with educating our Wilton seniors at Comstock Community, but we felt too that we were going to take that program on the road, and we were going to, if invited, to teach iPad and iPhone classes at local Wilton living facilities. For our tech lab, we're moving to Office 2013 and Windows 8 as a laptop tablet offering. We're going to continue with cell phone classes. Our plan for Facebook is to use it as a customer satisfaction tool to see how we're doing with classes. We would also like to put up there for our adult programs topics to see if there's interest in these topics in these communities. We would like feedback for these adult classes. We hope that good ideas kind of bubble up to the surface so we know what programs to put out there. Lastly, we will continue to provide quality, lightning fast customer service. And before we take your questions, we would like to thank all of the attendees here for your support during the year. Thank you.
Questions? Lori? Okay.
No.
Go.
How'd you do financially?
How are we doing
Financially, as you don't take any money from the school system, so how did you do with your registration?
Oh, well, registrations, I would say registrations were up for the young students, but not up for the adult population. The year was fraught with, we had 2 weather-related incidences and 2 tragedies. So that affected the adult registration, because with weather-related incidences, then people are discouraged and they don't want to go out, especially in the evening, although we do give adult ed classes in the day. I would say the trend for the young students is very strong and has come way back since about the recession in 2008-9. So I'd say very well with young student registrations. And I will say one more thing. In terms of registering online, the young student, the parent group, it's just about 100%. Now, it says 90% in the report, and that is off only because if a class fills, then we take it over. Or we have to do work in the office to get the rest of the children in. But I would say the trend is very strong for young students. It's way back.
Do you think the reduction in some of the co-curricular has contributed to more of the activities coming through continuing ed at Cider Mill and Middlebrook?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think we have 3 sports programs that are very strong.
Yeah.
Right? And we put out some new programs this year, the Theater Through Storytelling. I think the thing that drives the student group is that we change it up. We continuously try to change it up, and so that you're not constantly looking at the same old, same old.
And price points, too. We try to vary,
Right.
the pricing of the programs.
Right. Price points and the duration of those programs, 6, 8, 10 weeks. Yes, I agree.
Sure.
Price point and changing it up. You really have to stay dynamic as opposed to static.
Will there be any impact on your kindergarten with full-day kindergarten coming on? Do you think that's going to impact it positively or negatively?
Well, we have a Kinder Kids program now, which we will lose in the coming semester, next school year. We have a plan for that. We have a plan to replace the revenue lost from that program, and that is to try to increase the tuition-based programs to try to bolster up that registration. And those are tuition-based programs, so there's no way you can really increase student programs that are these 8, 10-week classes. So the concentration is those child care programs. And that's why we've been working for the last 3 years in that Cider Mill program to really make it strong, so that parents come as a decision to bring that child there. The other way to increase revenue is to collaborate with people so that we could expand offerings off-site. And really, we have planned for the expected and the unexpected. So,
And we've seen increases in the child care programs. We have for the past 2 years.
Yes.
In the reports, yeah, you'll see there's been increase. There's been increase in enrichment for the past 3 years. Big jumps. So we hope to grow.
we really like to feel that with the improvements we made in some of these programs, with the technology, with the activities, paralleling with the school philosophy, paralleling with school activities, to reinforce, to move it, it's an educational system. We like to believe that our program has that focus. So if you have a child that likes that likes to learn, that is enthusiastic about it, this is the place for them, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day.
Do you have numbers on total number of students that went through your system in the year?
Well, we have registration
regardless
numbers.
of age, yes.
Yeah, we have registration numbers in the reports. In the for enrichment programs, 1,761 students registered.
Are those students?
Those are students. Yep. And then
when I say students too, I mean
adults
as well. Total numbers. The reason I'm asking is that I want the community to get a feel for how much of the community we serve in total numbers.
960.
960 for adult ed, and
1761.
Yeah, for enrichment and then childcare.
We could certainly. Will we be able to get this report up on the website?
And you can get the presentation up on the website, too.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can do all that.
If you hit your space bar.
Really good idea.
You have to hit your space bar.
We offer that class,
that's how
too.
it goes, yeah.
It's a presentation.
Prezi?
A Prezi, and we offer this adult education class. It's a 2-day class, 5 hours, PowerPoint and Prezi. So we created the PowerPoint, and actually
The instructor helped us.
we uploaded it then into Prezi. So we teach this class. The best thing about using this program was that I was talking to my son last year. He's a graduating senior this year. I have 3 graduates, 2 from college and 1 from high school this year. And he told me last year that he was doing his senior project using a new program called Prezi. And it's great, as you know, to be on a campus, college campus, listening to all of this innovative ideas, and then to say to him, I'm using that too.
So young.
I love it. I'll be interested to hear down the road how the Facebook customer satisfaction tool works out for you. So remember to give us an update on that.
Yes, absolutely.
Chris?
The new math enrichment program, is that going to be aligned with Math and Focus? Or where did you get the curriculum from?
Well, this is the Singapore math.
Yes.
Everything we try to do educationally has to be in alignment with the schools. So before we hire anyone, we have to go and speak to principals. And it would be, an enrichment program, just a reinforcement of what yes. And most of the we hear from the parents. And so they'll come and they'll say, oh, we would love this. We want this. And so that's where we're coming from with this. But before we do anything, we have to check with the principals to see if they're in agreement. That's the way we do everything, really.
What about stand-up paddleboarding?
That is fun.
Where do you teach that?
What body of water do you use?
It's SUP, stand-up paddle, if you're interested. We teach that by, where is that?
It's
by
outdoor
the
sports.
It's
right across,
okay. Yes.
the
He has a
Yeah,
company
right.
in Greenwich, and he is was he a Wilton resident and has the company in Greenwich, and he owns this company, kayaking and SUP, and it's the latest trend. And we put that in place last year, and it's hugely popular. As Ken said to me one day when I said, "Ken, we're gonna put this program in place." He said, "You mean we're gonna have people in the water now?" Exactly. I said,
Always worried about insurance.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much.
That's great.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We now move on to Mr. Post's financial report for March 2013.
I always have to follow the uplifting reports. As of the end of March, I'm projecting a budget deficit of $971,337. This is little changed from my last financial report. The deficit is being driven by the same factors as I identified last month: special education outplacements and contracted services expenditures. Outplacements are over budget due to the unexpected increase in the number of outplaced students and the number of unbudgeted legal settlements. Most of these outplacements and settlements are the result of the increase in the number of students being identified as having social and emotional disorders, and we've been seeing this trend since last spring. Legal settlements generally result from mediation. Mediation occurs when parents disagree with the program that the district has proposed and unilaterally outplace the student. If we cannot resolve our differences with the parents regarding the student's program and services, we bring in a state mediator who guides us to a settlement. This fiscal year, we've had 32 students outplaced via legal settlements. Most of these, again, are students identified with social and emotional disorders. This compares with only 7 in 2007, 2008, and 10 in 2008, 2009. The total projected special education deficit is $1,319,965. As I reported last month, our excess cost claim is $926,864. I'm anticipating a reimbursement rate of about 65 to 70%, which means that the town would expect to receive about $625,000. Since the anticipated excess cost reimbursement does not exceed the projected deficit, the partial spending freeze that was implemented last fall is still in place. As of March 31st, health benefits expenditures are over budget by $44,774. This includes the $468,000 that the board contributed to teacher health savings accounts. It's a slight decrease from last month's report. Ed Norgard continues to estimate that our claims for the year will be very close to budget. I'll take any questions you have.
Do you anticipate that the spending freeze will offset that deficit by the end of the year?
Yes, I do. I think we may realize some savings in some other areas too. Some areas I'm very hesitant to project a savings yet. For example, workers' comp so far is running low, but we're self-funded, so you never know when something like that is going to, when an injury will happen that will cause a large expenditure. We're running under budget in heating oil and electricity right now, so we're still getting oil. We just got oil deliveries in the past week, so I'm not sure how much that favorable variance might be. So we have a few other favorable variances that I think will happen in addition to the savings from the freeze. So I think we'll be in good shape.
Are legal settlements taken into account in terms of calculating excess costs?
They can be if they're high enough. They typically are not that high, though. And you'll notice our total excess cost claim this year was $926,000. As recently as a couple of years ago, it was about $1.8 million. We've had several very high-cost students age out of the system in recent years, and our threshold, I believe, is around $75,000 right now for this year.
Any other questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
We now move on to the action item portion of the agenda. We've got policy 1331, naming of school facilities, near and dear to some of our board members.
One more time.
Mrs. Henderson.
See if you can get it right this time.
Well, I come before you one more time. Tonight could be the night. The last time we met, the question at hand was regarding the town's attorney's version of who has the authority. I am happy to say that the town attorney concurs with the board's attorney. While there is no clear authority, that being said, they do believe that the Board of Education does have the ability to name a school facility pursuant to Connecticut General State Statute 10-220, Connecticut case law, and out-of-state case law.
Can I have a motion to approve this policy?
Yes, finally. So
all in favor?
Any discussion?
Any discussion?
Do we want to have further discussion?
No discussion, but I'm opposed to it.
Okay. Thank you. We don't want opposition.
Enough said.
All right.
It is passed.
I know when to throw in the towel. But just for the record, there can be a Christine L. Finkelstein, whatever you want to name for me, based on these criteria. So.
Okay, and we now move on to the Wilton Educator and Administrator Evaluation and Support Plans. Before we get into this, I want the community to realize that a dramatic portion of what you're going to present is really driven by what the state is expecting us to do. So if you can, in your presentation, highlight those pieces that we can affect and those pieces we cannot affect, and then I ask the board to try to focus on the pieces we can affect as we raise our questions.
Absolutely. And what, I don't know if it was the previous meeting or the meeting prior to that meeting, at some point I provided to the board an overview of the teacher evaluation plan. This evening what I will do is I will start with an overview of the administrator evaluation plan, And then after that presentation, I'll come back and we can talk in specific details or questions that you may have regarding both the specifics of the teacher evaluation plan and the administrator evaluation plan, and the next steps that we must take as a school district to be in compliance with the state's requests. Okay? All right, great. Oh, thank you, Matt. So some of this should look very familiar, and the reason it will look familiar is because the same education reform bill that has driven the changes, the mandated changes in the teacher evaluation, are also driving and mandating the changes in the administrator evaluation plan. The Act concerning education reform is very clear about the guidelines that need to be in place for both teacher and administrator accountability. This all began back in June of 2010. You fast forward to April 2012, with the state at this point still holding fast to the idea that there will be full implementation for both new teacher and administrator evaluations statewide beginning July 1st, 2013. As you look, the core requirements for the administrator evaluation system are the exact same percentage breakdowns as well as category breakdowns for the administrator plan as it was for the teacher evaluation system. 45% student learning, 5% teacher effectiveness comes to a 50% outcome rating. There's a 40% observation of performance and practice, along with a 10% stakeholder feedback to give you a practice rating of 50%. When you total those scores together, you will have your final annual rating. The practice rating is similar in that observation of performance and practice is 40% as it is for the teachers. The variation here is the rubric and the standards that are being used for the administrator evaluation. The state is aligning the current observation of practice rubric that they have developed with the Connecticut School Leadership Standards as well as the ISLIC standards, which are the International Licensure Standards for administrators and supervisors. When you look at the performance and the rubric standards that we will be using for principals and central office administrators who have direct impact in the classrooms, the standard of teaching and learning is weighted twice as much as the other standards in the calculations and tabulations. The other standards that are used and weighted equally for other administrators holding an 092, those are vision, mission, and goals. There's teaching and learning, as I said, organizational systems and safety, families and stakeholders, ethics and integrity, and education system. The reason for the heavy weighting for the principals or other administrators who have direct supervision of classroom impact is the idea that teaching and learning is the most important thing that we do as educators, and for our principals, it is the most important job that they do. Our assistant principals, deans, associate principals, we are hoping that they are growing and becoming well-rounded, full-strength administrators. And to do that, we want to make sure that we focus evenly on all of those standards and not just the teaching and learning standard. The stakeholder feedback is similar to the teacher feedback portion in the teacher evaluation plan. There's one target for growth or performance. The feedback for stakeholders must include teachers and parents, but I want to be specific in that, again, this is not how is Mrs. Anderson as a Director of Human Resources and General Administration. This is going to help shape and talk about prevailing attitudes, standards, and conditions at our school locations, at our district, and within those district departments. This is something that while people like myself or Mr. Canty, we don't have stakeholders in parents, but we have stakeholders in our teachers and other administrators, and they will be the ones who we will elicit feedback from regarding the work that is being done. The outcome rating, again, it should all sound very similar and look very similar. The student learning, for 3 of our 4 buildings, we will have SPI, school performance indicators, school performance index that we will be able to use for one of our student learning ratings for. So those are set in stone, and that's something that the state has said that they want. They want you to use the SPI. That's kind of a non-negotiable as far as the state's concerned. And then we have the rest of that 45% will be made up of 2 local measures that will be determined at the school level in conjunction with the administrator supervisor. So if we as a district decide that we really want to focus our primary schools on reading comprehension skills and strategies, Gary or Dr. Richards in communication with the building-based administrators can make those determinations that these are in fact the goals and the targets we want to work on for the upcoming year. We can write those into those evaluation plans, and those will be the tools and benchmarks that will be used for their ratings. For a school like Miller Driscoll that does not have an SPI, instead of using the SPI, they will just have all 45% will come from the 2 local measures of student performance. The second part of the outcome rating is the 5% in teacher effectiveness. This is where there's a direct correlation between the success of the teachers in their evaluation systems and then the success of the administrators in their evaluation systems. When you look specifically into the document, it talks about a percentage of teachers who are either meeting their goals or exceeding their goals. That is a direct correlation to then how well the administrator either meets or exceeds their own goal. This is something that I think is really helpful to teachers to help communicate the message, which we've been sharing all along, that we are all in this together. This is not a system that is top-down from Dr. Richards to every other educator in the system. Everybody is in this together. The evaluation ratings and category names, again, are given to us from the state. While each district does have the authority to tweak those names will eventually be converted back by the state to these categories. Therefore, we're just going to stay with what we've got. And these, again, are the same exact category names and rating scales as what is used in the teacher evaluation plan. When you look at the summative rating chart, again, it's the same sort of system. You find yourself in one and yourself in the other, where the 2 shall meet. Again, exact same as the teacher plan. As with the teacher evaluation plan, the administrator evaluation plan has to be submitted annually to the state. It will be reviewed every year and resubmitted every year, and hopefully approved every year by the state. To be able to perform administrator evaluations, as an administrator, you must go through another round of training. So for people like Dr. Richards and our building principals, they will need to attend not only the teacher calibration training, they will also then go through an additional measure of training over the summer on administrating and evaluating administrator evaluations. The State Department, again, has indicated that they intend to audit all evaluations that come in ranked, either exemplary or below standard.
All of them?
That is what the state has indicated, yes. So here we are again, and it kind of where do we go from here? So we've had a lot of different conversations, and there've been, as we've said before, this is a very dynamic process that we are going through. It is ever-changing and flowing and moving, and we are changing and flowing and moving with it. We are at a point now, this evening, where this is our final board meeting before the deadline of May 3rd. The state has required all school districts to be in compliance to submit to them no later than May 3rd, both their administrator and teacher evaluation plans. So this evening, we will ask you to review the plans and to approve draft versions of the plan. In doing such, we will then submit it to the state. The state has indicated that they will take about a week to review and send back to us any commentary that they have, areas where we need to make modifications or tweaks or change our plan to be in compliance with the guidelines. And they will resubmit those changes. They will share with us our rubric back about where we are deficient, where we need to make our changes. We will do that, and then we will resubmit to the state, and we will resubmit to the board at that time as well for a final approval.
So, for clarification, the last
Certainly.
time you met with us,
Yes.
you had developed a plan based on the state guidelines.
Correct.
Spent a lot of time doing that.
I did.
Only to find out that the state changed the guidelines.
They did.
And didn't change the deadline.
Correct.
Has now brought you to the point where you've brought the new plan back to us, which really incorporates the new guidelines, which we really don't have any control over. We as a board saw these in email 24 hours ago, and we have to approve them tonight.
Well, and what we are going to ask you to do is to approve a draft. The biggest component that's missing currently from the teacher evaluation plan is the rubric that we will be using when we go into the classroom as administrators to monitor teacher effectiveness in the classroom. At this current time, the State Department is working on rewriting and redeveloping new standards.
Wait, is this deja vu? So they're building the airplane while they're flying it and asking us to jump on board and say, this is great. We're looking forward to a safe flight.
They're asking for us to be in compliance with their request to submit our draft plans. There have been other districts who have submitted draft plans to the board, and then the boards have submitted those to the State Department of Education with the state's understanding that these are in fact draft plans.
So you sent it with the big stamp?
I have not sent anything yet.
But when
No.
you do, it'll have the...
It most certainly will, yes.
Yeah.
Can you give us some clarification on the pieces that we can actually act on and perhaps provide some input on? Because it doesn't seem like we have a lot of choice here.
Certainly. What we can do, if we start with the teacher evaluation plan, and actually I can speak generally to both of the plans. In terms of the percentage breakdowns and the requirements for there to be student data as part of the evaluation plans, we don't have any authority to remove the use of student data from the evaluation plans. So the 50% in terms of outcome, we do not have any ability to remove those sections. When you look at stakeholder feedback, both in the administrator and the teacher evaluation plan, again, those are required components of the plan. The teacher evaluation plan allows for us to either use parent feedback and or student feedback. So that is something that the board could choose to do. They could say as a district, at this point, we would prefer that we use a combination of parent and student feedback. As administrators, we don't feel we're at a point yet where we are comfortable to say we have a solid enough handle on this new plan to start asking our students to provide us with feedback that we can disaggregate and use to help guide the district. We would like the opportunity to continue to use our school climate surveys, which we have done consistently over the years, and we're comfortable with those formats and with the way we get that information, to be able to use that to help us look at areas of growth for all of our schools and use those to move forward. Once we've had an opportunity to do that once or twice, given the new structure of these plans, then that's something that we might look at for our high school and or our middle school population. But certainly at this time, with a brand new plan, we don't feel that we have the capability at this point to really take on what we think would be extremely useful information and make it really useful right now. So those are both in terms of the outcome ratings. The practice ratings for the teacher, we in our current plan already do all of what the state is asking us to do, which is to conduct classroom observations, both formal and informal, hold meetings, and hold summative conferences with our teachers. So that's something we're already doing. So that's not something we would hope the board would want to change. We would hope you would want to continue. We as administrators believe that it is going to be an extremely daunting task for us to be able to get into every single classroom next year 3 times and to hold conferences with all of those teachers and provide them with the meaningful feedback that we know they want and they deserve. However, as school districts, we don't have the ability at this point to reduce it any more than we already have to be in compliance with the state guidelines.
So you need 3 observations and 3 conferences.
Pre and post.
You don't need 3, however. But you do need at least 1. And when it's a formal observation, there is a requirement for a pre and a post conference. When it's an informal, there is no requirement for a pre, but you do have to have a post conference follow-up. Yes. So it could be as many as 6 in total pre and post conferences as well, and then 3 observations, or it could be a different combination of those. It's kind of like a probability question in my class.
And to clarify, it's actually more than I thought it was when I read it.
Okay.
And to clarify again for everybody listening that this is every teacher now.
Every teacher in the district, correct.
Yeah,
Tenured, non-tenured, first year, teaching your 31st year.
Yep.
It does not matter. There will be, you will undergo observations next year.
Do you think there's going to be a growing group of consultants that school districts will hire just to perform this function, as opposed to using our existing administrators?
There are, in the statutes, there is an allowance for what the state has called complementary evaluators, which is an idea of using certified teachers, not administrators, but certified teachers to help perform these observations. At this point as a district, we don't have enough we don't have structures in place that we can currently use to pull those teachers out of doing their most important work, to go into other classrooms to watch how other teachers are teaching. We'd like to do that for professional development opportunities for our teachers, but at this point we don't have that ability. There are some districts that are much larger where they have teachers who have lots of release time where they might be able to do that kind of work, but at this point that's just not something we're able to do. The state is also, as they're writing these new rubrics, they are also putting out an RFP for people who will be on the approved trainer list to be able to conduct the trainings for the administrators to learn the administrator evaluation rubrics and the administrators to learn the teacher rubrics to then be able to conduct those observations. So there probably will be a growing number of entrepreneurs out there who will have a wonderful new job. But
so we're training. We've set training dates, Jane organized at CES, for our administrators in late June to be trained on a rubric that has not yet been delivered. So we're wondering about what that training is going to look like that we're committed to have, so that it's calibration training, it's really important. And
3 to 5 days of training, depending upon exactly how they figure out that they need to do. And then it'll be 3 days of training for the administrators to be trained on the administrator evaluation.
But Bill brings up, I think, an interesting idea, this whole like rather than using it's interesting if we could partner with some like a Weston or Westport or whatever, and then, I don't know, develop
the difficulty,
evaluators or something, like a tri-state. It's
an interesting idea. One of the things we were talking about this, Tim and Jane and I were talking about this earlier this week, excuse me, and that is that some districts have a different instructional leadership model than we utilize. Mm-hmm. They have the department chair model, which is much more costly, and I having worked under both systems, I think our model of the instructional leader, where they're teaching full-time, and they work longer day, longer year, is a better format. But it makes it harder to pull people out. And the districts that have the department chair model, where they teach maybe 2 or 3 classes a day, and the rest of the time they are supervising. So in those districts, they can have people who have 092s who can go in and do the evaluations.
Many other districts, if I may, are moving towards resource teacher models, whereby teachers, perhaps with 092 certification, administrator certification or not, are being put in place to help implement curriculum programs, but also are not designated classroom teachers. They are indeed resource teachers. And in putting these individuals in place in this structure, they could become available as complementary evaluators.
Yeah, but you're onto something, Lori. And I think
there are significant questions around role definition, even that Wilton will have to look at in its current administrator structure, along with future pressure to look at creative ways to create time,
Right.
quality time with quality educators who will be able to supervise the entire teaching force in all public schools.
You know, from time to time, there are small factions of our town that don't understand why, when our student population is decreasing, our head count isn't taking a precipitous drop. Have you done an analysis on how many incremental hours we will have to expend to implement these programs beyond what we're already doing now? And if not, I can understand you might not have yet. Is that something you could get to us?
It's something I have not done. It's certainly something that I could do. But if you think just in much round, very round numbers, 400 teachers times 3 observations a year, at least one of those observations for each of those 400 teachers will be about 45 minutes just to be in the classroom. And then you assume that there's about an hour's worth of a conference for just that one lesson.
It's $2,100 if I just followed your math.
What
is that compared to what we're doing now?
Well, right now you only have your non-tenured teachers who are being observed. So let's just use, let's say for safety's sake, 80 teachers.
Okay.
It's interesting. I wonder, do you foresee that over time, as this gets implemented, that, for example, like I asked that question about that it's all teachers who are being observed 3 times, that we could potentially move to a point where our tenured teachers are only observed, once during the year versus the 3 times. Do you see any flexibility possibly coming?
Yes, the state has in the guidelines set up once their big push point has been that once you have a baseline and you're able to, in using a new system, able to kind of benchmark every teacher where they are, then you can start to set up different levels of numbers of observations. However, they have been very clear in the idea that still the expectation is that every teacher will be observed every year. They may not be observed 3 times, but they will be observed at least once a year, which is still different too.
Teacher, right?
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
Okay.
But to go back to the point that you made earlier about being able to pull and create kind of cohorts within areas, the one difficulty that we may find is that while the categories and the percentages and the requirements are the same, not every district is going to use the same rubric. So I know for Westport is using a different rubric next year than Wilton is. I don't know what Weston is doing, but so that's going to add another layer of complexity, and it won't be as easy for us to maybe just kind of do those.
It will be to a certain extent similar because it's all coming from the same template from the state,
But they
though, right?
Well, say at Miller Driscoll, they may not be using the same assessments as Wilton is using.
Right, and what happens is some districts, while we have decided to go with the state model for the rubric, there are districts that are using Charlotte Danielson. There are districts that are using Marzano. So if they're going to have different lenses for which they will be expecting people to come in and observe their teachers than we will.
Jane, I think 10 districts piloted this evaluation.
Correct.
Are there any lessons that they learned that they've shared?
The state has asked the MEAG School of Education to put together some reflection papers and reports as they've met these different benchmarks. I have not read any of those yet. I don't actually know if they've been released. What I have heard, and this is not formally through any official announcement, but that districts are not meeting the timelines that are required as part of this, that they're not able to get into the classrooms the way that they're supposed to, and that there has been lots of dissatisfaction with the implementation.
Is there any talk about delaying the start?
There's talk. There most certainly is talk between and among many groups. However, I don't know at this point what the State Department feels about that. And I think I'm not sure, it was a few months ago, I believe, but when we talked about the state had said, okay, we will allow a different rollout plan. Their rollout plan was you can do it as we've asked for everybody in every building and all your teachers, or you can do it in a third of your buildings with all of your teachers, or 50% of your teachers in all of your buildings. And it became, when we started to talk about it, it really felt almost like a game of Survivor that we were going to ask people to play. And we chose not to get involved in that. So our teachers and our administrators all said together, we're all in this together. We'll sink or swim, and we'll all be in it together for better
The
or
idea
worse.
was to answer the question on or further respond to the question on the pilot districts. The idea was that the report was going to go to NEAG in what, January 1st, 2014?
Yes.
And then there was going to be time for them to look at lessons learned and have at the spring of 14 to be able to make adaptations and modifications based on lessons learned.
Right.
But with this idea, if the train is leaving the station for the 13-14 school year prior to the lessons learned study, I think it's sort of counterintuitive that they would do it that way.
I guess my
we're in a bit of flux, as Jane says, with this thing.
I guess my question as a board is what's really within our power right now relative to perhaps making suggestions to adapt the drafts that have put in front of us. I don't currently see any other than the discussion point of student parental feedback. And my personal take is it makes sense to get the plane built before we start messing with it.
But I'd certainly like us to go in that direction, especially at the high school.
No, I think it makes sense to go in that direction, and I think what continuing education is doing with their feedback model is something that we could perhaps look at in the future once they roll that out. Other thoughts, comments?
Is WEA required to approve this, or have they seen it?
Oh, yes, they've absolutely seen it. What's been really wonderful is the Staff Appraisal Committee. Yes, and the Staff Appraisal Committee has been a wonderful opportunity for administrators, teachers to all sit down together and to look at the requirements of the guidelines, to look at the actual rubric that the state sent to us about what we had to have in it to meet the criteria, to exceed it, so on and so forth. And this has really been a group effort in terms of building these evaluation plans with both the teachers union and the administrators union. It's been a great experience for us.
One other thing, since our employer is the superintendent and we have an evaluation.
You mean our employee?
Our employee is the superintendent, yes. Is there any change that we have to make to our evaluation? No. Does it impact that at all?
No, Dr. Richards serves the Wilton Board of Ed under an 093 certification. The administrator's evaluation is for those holding 092s.
Okay.
Can I have a motion to approve the Wilton Educator Evaluation and Support Plan?
I'll make a motion that we authorize Mrs. Anderson to submit that to the State Department of Education for the review.
The draft.
Will there be any changes, though, between now and then?
There are some grammatical changes that I continue to find, no matter how many sets of eyes I have look at it. I continue to find things, so there will be those kind of changes, but there will not be content changes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Now, do we need a second motion for the teachers one as well?
Yes. I'm moving to that.
Sorry.
That was the educated.
Yes, now I need a motion to approve the Wilton Administrator Evaluation and Support Plan.
And again,
Draft
it's a
going
draft.
to the state.
I'll move that we authorize Mrs. Anderson to submit the draft that we've seen to the state for their review.
Second. Any discussion?
I have a question that I noticed, and this might be something that's standard, and I'm just not aware of it. For an underperforming teacher, the draft plan says that they would have 2 scheduled observations and 1 unscheduled for their total of 3, and that's 3 consistent across the board. But it just seemed to me that for an underperforming teacher, that was low.
For an underperforming teacher, that's in addition to having let me find the supervised assistance program, which is on page 4.
No, I understand that. But it seems to me, a surprise visit to observe you in the classroom would be very helpful, and one might be more.
During the supervised
Helpful.
assistance, there are 3 formal observations and 2 informal that are done between the beginning of the school year and between September 1st and January 31st.
Then
so there are 5 observations.
I'm sorry, I missed that then. But then does that chart need to be updated to?
The chart is reflective of just the general process. Then when you look here for teachers that are under a supervised assistance plan, that's separate and distinct from the flow of this regular chart.
Okay.
It's in
As long as
addition.
she understands.
She understands.
As long as you've got it, Jane.
Our practice, Chris, is also when our principals, when they have a situation like this, they do far more than.
Well, I had a
minimum.
feeling
Yeah.
Wilton did,
Because they really.
but because we're sort of putting this down on paper.
Yeah. Our principals have been very each of them over the years I've watched in the cases, and they're not many, but when they've had concerns and programs of assistance, they've gone in many times. I really have taken a great deal of comfort in seeing that it's not just the minimum number at any given point based on a policy.
Well, does the current agreement not specify any number then? Just that the teacher shall be observed?
The same number exists currently for our supervised assistance plan as it does in the draft plan moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jim.
The timeline for our future meetings is on the website. I want everybody to make note of the fact that the town meeting is on May 7th. It is at 7:30 p.m. at the Middlebrook School Auditorium, not at the Clune Center, at the Middlebrook School Auditorium. And voting will continue after that on Saturday, May 11th. And then we have a regular meeting on May 9th at 7 p.m. here at the Professional Library. As we do at the beginning and end of every meeting, we look for comments from the public. Is there anybody that would like to come address the Board of Ed? Seeing none, I remind you that you can contact us via our email address. And can I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor?